The division has intercepted a message between Captain Lewis and General Anderson, the new leader of the True Sons. 5 of them, including Major Castillo, are moving in on DC. Something big is coming. Malcolm Castillo was the senior engineer at the Pentco Fairview nuclear power plant. Expecting his first child with his wife Sharon, the prospect of their future was both exciting and daunting. He'd always been very particular about how things should be done, and when it came to preparing the house for the arrival of their new baby, this was of no exception. Castillo had a plan, and this would be one of the major contributions he could actually do for his expectant wife, and he was eager to get started as soon as possible. So for the sake of their marriage, and to avoid any more unnecessary stress, Sharon had decided that at 5 months pregnant, it would be a good time to visit her family in New York. This would also be one of the last times she would be completely child-free, and a Black Friday shopping spree with her sister in Manhattan sounded perfect. The plan was simple. She was to spend 2 weeks bonding with her sister, while Castillo focused on getting the house ready. Unbeknownst to her and the multitude of shoppers on Black Friday, a deadly virus, known as the green poison, had been released. And sadly, while out shopping, Sharon too contracted the virus. Assuming that it was no more than just the flu, she refused to seek treatment. Her main concern was that the doctors might prescribe her something that could harm her unborn baby. 10 days later, at a clinic in Brooklyn, Sharon died. Utterly broken and grieving the loss of his wife and unborn child, Castillo immersed himself deeply into his work in the hopes of keeping his mind busy. Eventually, he moved himself into the facility to ensure that the plant remained functional at all times. As the pandemic continued to progress, the National Guard was ultimately sent in to protect the compound, and in order for Castillo to remain on site, he would have to enlist. Even after completing basic training, his primary objective still remained the same. As the on-site expert, he was to continue in his role of keeping the power plant safe and operational. However, always there and in the back of his mind, he believed that Sarah, the JTF, the government, and in turn the division, were all heavily responsible for what happened to his family. He held the belief that there was no way possible that they were unaware of Amherst's plans, and that they simply just allowed it to happen. Anderson, who was a logistics officer to the leader of the True Sons, Antoine Ridgway, was successfully able to tap into Castillo's grief along with further heightening his mistrust of the government. By using Castillo's anguish and genuine experiences to express his deepest heartbreak, Anderson was able to convince the National Guard to abandon their post, and thus allowing the True Sons to take control of the plant.
Nice to meet you, Castillo. I've heard great things.
Wish I could say the same, Dusk.
Excuse me.
I don't care if your watch is red, your division. And now you're working with the Black Tusk.
I can assure you, I'm a True Son.
Then why are you still wearing that garbage?
The best way I can support the True Sons is to take advantage of the existing infrastructure. I thought that was something we had in common.
You're smart.
So are you. And we are specialists in our fields. As long as you are loyal to Ridgway, to the cause, I promise to keep you safe.
You really are a True Son.
I am. Now, give me the tour. I've never been to a power plant before. Do I need to wear like a lead-lined suit or something?
Only if you go near the reactor or your radiation meter goes into the red. But that won't happen.
Lynette Edwards, codenamed Dusk, was a third-generation Marine. Shortly after her first tour, she was recruited by the SHD. After the outbreak, Dusk was activated in Washington, D.C., but it didn't take long for her to come to the conclusion that the institution was corrupt. In fact, she was finding herself more and more aligned with the True Sons' way of thinking. Eventually, she decided that enough was enough. She turned rogue and joined up with the True Sons. When the True Sons' leader, Antoine Ridgway, was eventually hunted down and killed by the division, Dusk went on to continue Ridgway's work with a group of true sons who were devoted to his cause. Unfortunately, the attacks had left them weakened and short on supplies. She would do whatever it took to help her new family. Dusk would use her contacts to gain a connection within the Black Tusk and offer a trade in return for food, water, and weapons. Barton Schaefer would get in contact. She explained the situation that her and the True Sons were in. Supplies were critically low and that they didn't have enough weapons to go around. Barton agreed to the request of assistance and made a deal where they could work together. With all of this happening, Castillo would keep on working tirelessly to keep the power plant operational, while also continuing to obsess over the events that led to his wife's death.
Castillo, we've been having rolling blackouts. Everything stable with the grid?
Nothing is stable with the grid. Everything is old and failing.
That's comforting. Should I be looking for a fallout shelter?
Everything is stable with the reactor. The reactor and the grid are two separate things. Trust me, if the reactor failed, you'd know.
Oh, well, you're the expert.
Your local power supply has nothing to do with our work here. If you're having rolling blackouts, brownouts, or unstable power, you're going to need to send someone down to the relay stations and transformers and see if they need maintenance.
I'll see if I've got anyone who knows that infrastructure.
Good luck. Start with ex-Public Works employees. Or, I guess, raid the Secretary of the Interior's office for a map of the power stations.
You're funny.
I'm serious. Go to City Hall. They should have schematics for all of this stuff. It should also be online. Your precious Isaac should have all that data.
You should be an agent.
I'm happy being an engineer. I don't need to play sheriff. It's probably squatters. Someone taps into the line, doesn't know what they're doing, and fucks up the whole system. You'll need to check the stations. Then you need to send the exterminators to take care of the rats chewing on the wires. Should be like riding a bike for you, Agent.
After some time had passed, and the leader of the True Sons, Antoine Ridgway, was killed by the Division, and then Dusk during the Barton Schaefer manhunt, General Anderson would step up and take the reins. Anderson had ambitious goals for the True Sons and planned on expanding their reach far beyond Washington, D.C. It was around this time that Castillo had decided that it was time for him to put down his work and investigate further. He wanted to go into D.C. to find out more and who was responsible. But without him on site, there would be no one to run the power plant. So Anderson made a deal with him to train up True Sons members to work in his place while he was gone.
How are the new recruits doing?
Great. We've got 4 shifts, 10 people per shift. 40 skilled prisoners trained and ready to operate the reactor in case anything happens to me. Each shift has a True Son at the helm to keep them in line and train any future replacements, and each of them has 2 backups. We're set for the worst case scenario. And the best case.
Best case?
If we want to expand our operations, we have the opportunity to build a mobile team to take control over another reactor. The infrastructure, design, and basic mechanics are similar enough that my crew should be able to figure out how to keep the lights on.
That's excellent news, Castillo.
Thank you, sir. About that favor.
You've more than earned it. Transpose on their way, you will have a squadron at your disposal. Good luck in D.C. I hope you find what you're looking for.
Thank you, sir.
After training enough True Sons to run the plant, General Anderson rewarded his dedication by sending him to Washington, D.C. to investigate Sarah and the Division's role in his wife's death. But Anderson had ulterior motives behind this gift. Having already used Castillo's speaking talents to gain control of the power plant without bloodshed previously, he saw a powerful propaganda machine that could be placed in the middle of DC. There, he could continue to bolster the True Sons' ranks, or at the very least, provide a much-needed distraction. It was a win either way in Anderson's eyes.
There is no reason that Amherst should have been allowed to release his poison on the world, other than some idiot with access made a choice. And the choice they made was to let my wife, Sharon Castillo, and her sister Carolyn Owens, and my daughter, who we were waiting to meet, to name. My child, who I will never be able to name because I will never be able to meet her because she was still inside of Sharon when those monsters dumped their bodies into a mass grave in Central Park and set it on fire to contain the virus. My wife and daughter paid the price for their negligence.
After taking back a number of strategic points of interest, Castillo and a group of true sons would eventually be tracked down and confronted by division agents at the DCD headquarters. There, he would face off against the division agents, eventually being brought down and killed. At the conclusion to the manhunt target, Kelso summed up the situation. Castillo was consumed by his grief. He was in pain and was directing his pain onto others. But this wasn't all his fault. The true sons exploited his mental state, using him as a recruitment tool to bring others to their cause. And once they were done with him, they had no problems casting him aside. Castillo's story is a simple one, but a really nice one to start with. Although very straightforward, it opens us up to a number of bits and pieces that are happening behind the scenes, and something much larger that is playing out, including the new character, Kelvin McManus, that has appeared in comms talking with Natalia Sokolova. But I'll talk about this one soon in another video. Online, Yannick has said that they have placed a new objective of connecting the story with the current state of the world. And being someone that's often trying to make the story feel a little more real, I'm stoked to see this. My concerns about the story being told in a more direct manner have been alleviated. I was worried that the more direct way of bringing the story to the player would potentially remove some of the depth, but fortunately I was wrong. In fact, I would say that the story is showing more depth and a hell of a lot more emotion that we've received in previous manhunts. I found myself far more engaged with Castillo's story. As I said though, this is just the start. After a long break, I suspect things will get very interesting soon. Thank you very much for watching, and especially big thank you to all of the new paid NGN members who have joined the channel recently. It seriously means a lot to me and the family. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!
Do not believe that there was nothing they could do. The government was monitoring Gordon Amherst. We found the records. We found the proof. They deemed him not a credible threat. All of this blood is on their hands. They allowed this to happen. Do not let them get away with this. The true sons are fighting for your freedom from their tyranny. Do not believe the government's lies. The green poison was just the beginning.